Let's see. Hey, all right. Looks like we're live. So this is the part where have you done this before, Maria?
Never.
Never. First time for everything.
Yep.
Let me do this first. I'm going to tell you that it is freezing cold here. I am so soft. It's 20. I think for you it's 4 degrees. For us, it's like 57 degrees in the U.S. I'm in the U.S. right now, but that's how people will understand it. I'm freezing. I'm sitting here with a blanket. Clients have said to me, "Listen, sorry, we can't really have our meeting today because it's just too cold outside and we're gonna die."
Mm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm always so impressed when you talk about going to the beach. Like, what is beach temperature there? You were telling me earlier.
Yeah. Well, going to the beach is more of a mentality and set of mind than something to have to do with the weather. So if it's May and there's snow, you will still go to the beach anyhow
Wow.
because it's a summer month. So it's
So
more
you
of the
just
mentality. And I have to admit, I lied to you earlier. It's not plus 20 degrees Celsius degrees, it's 11. So it dropped from the morning. So we are almost the same today.
wow, and you're just chipper and happy and
Beautiful day, beautiful sunny day today.
yeah, not me. I'm actually cold. To Brazil, my new home in Brazil. This is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
Completely unacceptable. Let me do this because I know there's no way for me to do it the correct way. Give us your full name in Finnish, which in Finnish you don't say Finnish, you say
Suomeksi.
that word for
And
me.
that means in Suomeksi means in Finnish.
Okay.
Mm. So you want me to do the introduction in Finnish?
Yes.
Okei. Okay. Moi kaikille, mun nimi on Maria. Olen kotoisin Suomesta ja tänään puhun YusefWateefin kanssa muun muassa maahanmuutosta.
Thank you, because there's no way out of it. I actually thought about trying to greet you in Finnish, and then I thought that would just be so disrespectful.
No, but that is one of the most easiest thing for you. If you can only repeat, hey,
Hey,
and that's our greeting.
that's it.
That's it.
Hey, so you say hey just like Americans say hey?
Exactly.
Okay, well,
Mm,
game of inches. Well,
exactly.
this is what I want to talk to you about. And
Mm.
let me back up for a second. Tell everybody where you were from, where I met you, how many languages you speak, the stuff that makes you awesome, how smart you are.
Okay.
Well,
So
I have
yeah, I'm
standards. I have standards.
right. So yeah, my name is Maria, originally from Finland and also currently residing in Finland. Have been traveling quite a bit. Met Wateef in China, in Shanghai, a couple of years back. After that, I have been living in the Philippines and in Uganda as well. So after all these years, I returned to Finland to study a bit more about education, and currently I would title myself as an education specialist. I'm also a language teacher. I have a certification to teach Swedish and German in Finland. I'm currently working on the English certificate.
So you speak what, 4 languages?
Yes.
And you're being kind of modest with the level of education you have. And that's okay. I just want anyone listening to know if you ever anywhere in the world need a linguistic professional who has more degrees than I have squares of toilet paper on my roll, you need to call her. Call me, I'll get you in contact with her because she's underplaying her academic success right now, I guess, so that people with only 1 or 2 degrees like me don't feel slighted. And that's okay. That's okay. So just to get this out of the way, I want to be clear. I speak for every Black American. I speak for every Black expat, and you speak for every Finnish person and every woman in the world, right?
I try to.
Exactly. I know there's going to be some knucklehead who decides to intentionally misinterpret something one of us says and says, "Oh, well, they're speaking for." No, they're not.
Yeah.
You're just speaking for you, and this is a great conversation about something that you and I have talked about privately, and that you have seen with some of the groups that you and I are in together
Mm.
about the immigration issue. And I know Finland right now is going through a very specific immigration issue I actually, at the bottom of the video right now in the comments, people can see I linked to um, one of the specific moments that you and I spoke about in a podcast by Sam Harris. So let me back up for a minute. Tell me what the immigration issue right now is.
Well, currently the situation is calmer now, as it was, for instance, 2015, when we had the biggest amount of asylum seekers ever in the recorded history, if I have understood correct. So right now, things are relatively smooth regarding everything, basically.
So when you say the largest immigration movement, do you mean
Mm.
in Finland?
Mean, yeah, in Finland. So 2015, that was the time when we got 32,500 asylum applications. And like, I have to give the background. So Finland is, the whole population is 5.5 million. So this is a relatively small country. So for us, 32,000 is quite a large number of people coming without nothing and expecting some kind of assistance and help. So
That's
that
an
was a
enormous
lot.
percentage. If I'm just doing rough math,
Mm,
that's an
yeah.
enormous percentage of your population to deal with immigrants who, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm.
where are most of them coming from?
They are mostly coming from, on that year, they were mostly coming from Iraq, Afghanistan, and then Somalia.
And
But mainly from Iraq. More than 20,000 were coming from Iraq.
okay, and how are their language skills? Because your official language of Finnish in the American,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken, I don't know anyone who learned that in high school. I don't know anyone who learned that in college. How common is that language in other parts of the world?
It's, you can't even use the word common. It's rare. Like, you can barely learn it in other countries. Like, maybe some private institutes might offer courses, but there are a few universities who offer this as a hobby language, but you can't get a degree in it. Only in few European countries have such universities, if I have understood correct. But
Wow.
yeah, if there's 5.5 million Finnish citizens, so there can't be more than 5.5 Finnish speakers in the world either. So this is a very nation-bound language, I would say.
Is Finnish what we call a money language, like Mandarin from China, English from the United States? A language, if you learn this language, you're going to be able to do a lot of business?
No, no. If you want to learn Finnish as a foreigner, it's merely because you want to settle in Finland. With this language, you really don't do much outside of the Finnish borders.
Hmm.
Sadly, as it is, but yes, this is the case.
Hmm. Well, when we talk about immigration, there are levels to immigration, and I'm sure Dave, who's watching right now, he always has a lot to say on
Mm.
immigration as well. When someone comes to Finland, now there are other countries that are warmer.
Mm.
Why that have easier languages? South America,
Yeah.
English speaking language.
Hmm.
What's the draw? What makes Finland a place that someone's going to come from a country, literally across the desert
Mm.
away to say, I want to immigrate to Finland?
Well, I wouldn't say that Finland is anyone's number one choice in general. As Finland is part of EU, and the immigration in EU is tried to handle in a way that they actually transfer people. Like, you can enter a country, but then if there's too many migrants or refugees in one country, part of them can be transferred to another country. And in Finland, that has been the case, that we are the receiving part after the refugees have entered one country first.
I don't quite get
So
that. So you could
so like, for instance, we have a lot of people who first tried to enter Germany. So they came to Germany, got the papers, but they were not allowed to stay there. So they were transferred to Finland to seek the asylum instead of Germany in Finland.
So
Did I
let's
make any
take
sense?
Germany as a random example. I'm an
Mm,
immigrant from one of the countries you mentioned earlier. I
mm,
go to Germany and I get my papers. By papers, do you mean,
mm.
and correct me if I'm wrong, the European Union acknowledges you as an immigrant, as an expat? as a
No,
as a
sorry. Can I interrupt here? Sorry. So, like, you don't get the asylum yet in Germany, but instead you are transferred to Finland to
okay.
apply for the asylum because there's too many other asylum seekers already in Germany and they are within the process. So instead they will be then transferred to Finland.
By
But
transferred, you mean they
mm,
put you on a bus and physically say, "Here's your bus to Finland."
this is one option. But I think, well, this is now, I have to say that I am not an expert in this field. So this is based on the little knowledge that I have, and I'm more than welcome to learn more and more detailed information regarding this. But like, it's merely this that, if I understood correct, that these people they get a no from Germany, and then they have to apply another country. So then Finland might come in handy because not that many people want to go to north. Of course, people know more about Germany, France, Italy, Spain, UK. So they try to get the position there, but it's easier to go to the smaller countries like Finland.
And
But for instance,
go ahead, but for instance, I don't want to interrupt.
yeah, for instance, like 2015, so we got a lot of people through the Russian border. So they didn't migrate to Europe, but they took the route, the hard way to Russia instead. And that was the big surprise. This what we were not ready for.
Isn't that considered rude, to use the most socially correct phrase I could? Wouldn't it be considered rude for Russia or Germany to say, you know what? I'm going to send all these people who I don't want to an even smaller country. Uh, Here you go. It's would it be like a white elephant present? Here's a present that we know you can't afford the upkeep of. Because I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, I
Yeah.
suspect the reason that they don't want them as immigrants would be the same reason you don't, because they don't speak the language and
Mm,
they can't really. Because if just to be
mm.
clear, I suspect that we're not talking about skilled workers able to easily immigrate into a new society.
Yeah. Well, now the within refugees, so you can have both. You can have these who have zero education whatsoever, and then you have doctors and lawyers, but they have the same status. So now again, maybe my naive understanding gives me this freedom to say that it's just a bunch of people who try to enter Germany, and that same bunch, no matter who are within them, are not allowed to, and then they will continue to Finland.
Well, what's the filtering process?
This I'm not familiar with. The filtering process happens first when the asylum process starts. So now, for instance, in the podcast, I also listened to that, and Mr. Damon was referring to this Somalians and the quota of refugees that Finland has. All of this is true. The information is rather a bit old because the Somalians started to come to Finland in the beginning of 1990s. So things have changed after that. But
Hmm.
this quota refers to the people who already got the asylum before they enter Finland. So now this discussion of the people going first to Germany, so they don't have the asylum before they enter Finland. So they are not part of this quota. So we don't know anything about their background before they come. So all the backup check, everything happens first when they have entered Finland already.
And that's what's happening now.
Partly, like, we have every year we have the quota for um, more than 700 people, so they get the asylum already before they enter Finland. But
Okay.
then we have every year a couple of thousand people coming without the asylum, so they enter the country first and they apply for the asylum only after entering.
Hmm. And what is the policy? And I'm not asking you to speak as a politician, but from someone who has, her shoes on the ground, is there a filtration process? Because it's a different issue for someone to come with, say, a degree in math, a degree in the sciences,
Mm,
skilled labor. a
Hmm.
skilled electrician to come into a country as opposed to someone who unfortunately has no skills yet or too young to have skills or come with small children to easily be integrated into a society? Is there a filtration process from your country?
Of course, there is, like, when this process begins, like those who apply for the asylum in Finland, I think currently half of the applications are rejected. And all the time we have this discussion going on in the society. Is there something more we can do to really find out who are the actual ones who need the help, who need the asylum, and who are the ones who just are after a better life, even though they would not be in real danger in their home country?
Well, that goes to a philosophical question. Are we looking at immigrants being people who should be allowed in because they, on the one side of the coin, need a better
Mm,
life, or on the
yeah.
other side of the coin, bring something to the table, bring something to your new
Mm,
country that you can say, "Hey, I offer you this skill in return for you letting me live here."
yeah. Well, those who come, they can apply for the asylum. If they are not permitted for it, this process might take a long time, so it might take 1 year, 2 years, depending how many asylum seekers are there. If you happen to learn the language, either Finnish or Swedish, Finland's a bilingual country, by the way. So if you master or have an intermediate level in either of the languages, and you can show that you have found a job and you can support yourself, so you can already have the working visa by that. So then you don't need to worry about the asylum seeking position anymore, and then you are considered as a migrant. But now it's just like which is your status? Is it a asylum seeker or a migrant worker?
So if I came to you and I said, "Here's my friend from random nation. He would be a good helper for Maria in her business. And he is not a citizen. He doesn't have any status. Could you legally hire him?" Because that's something in the United States that we always go back and forth on, the
Mm.
issue of people hiring someone who don't have legal status. Can you do that without punishment in your country?
There will be suspicion, of course, but I need to show that you have a particular set of skills that I need, especially, so that I can't get this set of skills from anyone else who is already a citizen or having a permanent residence permit.
Mm. And how well are people able to learn the language within 2 years of study? For example, Portuguese, which, to be clear to anyone listening, I do
Mhm.
not speak at the level that I should because my career is in English. I didn't have to fully linguistically integrate. That's why I'm in classes for it now in university that I'll be enrolling in soon. It's a matter of I know that within 2 years, I have friends that within 1 year whose jobs
Mm.
were their office was totally speaking Portuguese. Within 6 months to a year, they're speaking completely fluently because they can simply turn off all
Mm.
the English parts of their life.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas I can't because I'm spending hours a day dealing in English as an
Mm.
editor. Stop the show. This is time for me to do my commercial. For anybody watching, I don't do Google ads and I don't do any YouTube sponsorships through YouTube. I don't want to be demonetized, so I'm not asking for their money. What I will tell anyone watching is that I'm an editor, copy editor, proofreader, ghostwriter, anything having to do with the English language. I coach people who do public speaking, people who do TED Talks. If you need anything like that, if you need someone to write your resume, contact me. I'm the person you should hire. And furthermore, if you want to sponsor this show, send me a t-shirt, maybe a new microphone to do the show with, or a cool camera. I will whore myself out for your product. As long as you're not a dirtbag, I will talk about you on the show. I will wear your shirt. I will use your microphone, and I will tell everybody who you are and to click on your YouTube channel or to click on your Instagram, whatever. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. You got to get it in somewhere, right? I mean, who's gonna prostitute my services if I don't do it for myself?
Exactly. Yeah, that was perfect. So regarding the language, Finland is titled to be one of the most difficult languages in the world to learn, but I would say that it's not impossible. And if, for instance, you would be able to follow your friend's example that you merge yourself into the society, you integrate as far as possible, and when you hear the language around you and you don't have any other choice than speak it, you will learn it within 1 year. So you will reach the intermediate level that is required for the working visa, for instance, within 1 year.
Okay. So it's not impossible. If you decide to do it, it can
No,
get done. It's not a
exactly.
language that is so far fetched that it's an impossible task. You'll figure it out. I
Yeah.
believe I was told once, and I believe it might have been Dave who told me this, that most languages have about 200 of the most common words. And then if you can learn to function within those 200 words, you can speak at an intermediate level all across the board. Now, of course, people are going to focus on the things that work for them. For example, when I go to a restaurant or have anything to do with
Mm,
food, people think I'm fluent because I can order food all day. I
mm,
can look at food,
yeah.
describe food, but that's my area of expertise. That's something that I
Mm.
focus on. I eat a lot, and I come from a family of chefs. So for me, that's a bit different. I suspect it's the same for you. By the way, what was the first second? That was an awful sentence. What was the first language besides your native tongue that you learned?
It's English.
Oh, was that something taught in school?
Yeah. I started learning English on the third grade upwards.
Oh wow, so you got it very easy there because you got to do it all the way through school. We had the choice, I
Yeah.
think, in high school of French or Spanish, and I wanted French, and then I ended up learning uh, a couple of semesters of Spanish, which destroyed my ability to learn Portuguese. That's neither here nor there. So,
Oh, sorry.
well, for someone, well, some people believe it helps them. For me, it hurt me because whenever I'm in class, my professors would say I use the right word with the wrong pronunciation.
Mm.
And I would always get a stern slap on the desk for no, we are not in Spain right now. Please stop. But as someone who's got her shoes on the ground there, what do you see socially? Do you see the immigrants able to maintain a lifestyle that allows them a middle class life, thus middle class respect? Are they relegated to immigrant ghettos like a lot of countries where if you come in as an immigrant, because you can't have the same career you would have had at home as a doctor or an attorney or a highly skilled electrician, you can't afford that middle class lifestyle, thus living in a middle class neighborhood, thus avoiding some of the woes that beget people of
Mm.
lower economic standing.
Yeah. Well, the sad truth is that you are, as a migrant, you have very hard chances reaching the same status as you would have had in your own country, especially if you are coming or having the middle class life there. Like we have bus drivers who have been lawyers before. We have cleaners who are PhD holders, and this is the reality. I wouldn't say that we have ghettos as such, but of course, migrants tend to live next to each other because it feels more like home. Anybody
Oh,
would do that.
oh, I would have to give you some pushback on that, my friend. From what I've seen from that argument, it's that people of the same economic status tend
Hmm.
to cluster. I don't think people who
Okay.
come from the same area move to areas that live in the same area if there's no economic benefit. Now, there are groups of people who live together because economically they are all financially aware and astute and can help each other. But I
Mm.
don't think that they live next to each other because they simply decided, uh, I want to live next to the same people. I think that they can all afford the same level of lifestyle.
Mm. Okay. One can see it from that perspective. But yeah, I have to admit that Finland, the possibilities in Finland for a person who is non-Finn are limited because you really need to learn the language in order to get into job positions, and you need to be twice or more times better than a Finnish person in order to reach that same job, even though you had the same qualification.
Can you say
So
that sentence for me again?
okay, so this is my firm belief that a foreign person who really wants to succeed in Finland, you need to try twice or thrice as hard as a Finn in order to get into a same job as a ethnic Finn.
I want you to know that you just said something without knowing it that is taught to Black Americans from childhood, even though we are not aliens, we are not immigrants, and we are not foreigners. Black children are taught from the beginning of their lifestyle that you must minimum be twice as good to get half as much credit as a white American. That's, mind blown that you just gave me an analogy that countries use for immigrants who are not native to be completely in parallel with how Black Americans who are born into a country and did become tax-paying members of society since the beginning, more than tax-paying. I mean, we put in decades and labor for free. Did you know that when you said that exact same phrase is what's taught to Black American children?
I did not know.
Wow. That's a completely different conversation. Speaking of conversations, I do want you to become part of one of my next roundtables. The only thing I would say is that I have to teach you to be more aggressive, because one of the conversations we've had about how language works in your country versus how language works in English-speaking countries is that you tend to all wait for your turn to talk, whereas we just fight our way in tooth and nail to the conversation. So I could see you just standing there waiting to say something interesting, and the chance is never coming. Do you think Do you think you could just muscle your way in? Because I know you have so many amazing ideas and experiences.
Well, this is something that I need to do, have a constant minding about it. But this is the culture that I'm brought up with, always to be polite and give the other person the chance and space to speak. And I'm not afraid of having these, silences between the chats. But this is completely foreign component in the American culture, speaking English in general.
Well, didn't you tell me once that it's possible to have dinner with an entire family and no one says a word and it's just okay?
That's a regular dinner for me.
Just a bunch of people at a table thoroughly enjoying their dinner and just not. I would think someone was about to murder me. If that happened in the United States or in a group of English teachers and everybody goes silent, we're all going to start sweating, because then you're like, okay, someone in this room is a mass murderer.
Okay.
For English speakers, you would have to be a complete sociopath to sit in a group of people and not say a word. That's like a danger sign. What's wrong with this person?
Right. No, this is more than common here, I would say. Of course, like, you won't sit the whole entire dinner, in reality speaking, of course, in and not be talking anything about, of course, but it's not this. It's more about eating, more about the food than having a conversation with someone.
Wow. Well, let me ask you a question. Speaking of eating and food being such an international, pastime that people enjoy together, socially, do you see the immigrants from these countries being able to go out to restaurants and not be harassed? Do you see them, because in the United States, it's unfortunately becoming more and more common for stereotypical white Americans to see someone who they do not perceive as white or deserving of white privilege to, I remember talking to my friends from India when a man walked into I don't know if it was some kind of a fish and chip shop, a regular corner bistro, people go have a beer and sandwich after work, and shot an Indian man to death because he was from India. We have consistent stories of Black Americans simply existing in the world being murdered because they were in a place that white Americans felt a Black American shouldn't be allowed to be. I'm hoping things haven't degenerated to that level in your country, but what is the temperature like?
Well, this is again, like, I'm part of the majority here, and I have, of course, the white privilege all around me, and that I see as a norm. So what I see around me, I've never seen anyone being harassed, but this is not the truth. And luckily, I have enough friends with African, with Middle Eastern origin, with Asian origin, who tell me otherwise, that what is the reality in Finland. And the harassment happens merely in public spaces, and restaurant is not a public space as such. So in a restaurant you can eat in a peace, but a bus stop, a bus, a street might be something that where you might find yourself in trouble.
And do the police take it as seriously when let's take the worst possible situation. I have a friend who's part of an NGO, a non-governmental charity organization. He said that when they monitor the health of a country, they never monitor the health of men or particularly white men. They find Black or brown or the darkest color woman who is a mother and monitor her mental health, because it will tell you the health of the nation. If
Yeah.
I see a brown woman with a baby walking down the street on Saturday going to a supermarket with a bag of groceries,
Mhm.
is she safe?
Yes,
Okay.
because then there's still a lot of people working and walking around. But I wouldn't advise her to go around with the baby after midnight.
Really?
But
Uh,
this applies for the bigger cities, and especially the Saturday night. Yeah, we already had the discussion earlier about the alcohol consumption in Russia and Finland. So alcohol brings, of course, the worst part of us in front. So
just as a segue, because you brought it up, alcoholism is becoming a bigger issue, or has always been a big issue in the country.
it has always been a big issue here.
What drives so many people to? For those who aren't watching, can you tell them the emoji story?
Yeah, yeah. We had this discussion about emojis and how Finnish people love to use emojis in end of any kind of chat conversation. That after every phrase or line or word you want to post. So we have certain emojis, culture and country specific in Finland, and one of them is an emoji for drinking at home in your pajamas. So this is a very Finnish culture.
So, getting drunk in your pajamas is a uniquely Finnish pastime.
We consider that, like on a Saturday, if you're not feeling that you want to party outside and you are broke or whatever reason you don't want to go out and spend a lot of money, so you go instead to a supermarket, you buy your beer there, and then you have a leisure evening at home in your pajamas.
Wow. And so it just becomes, and this is men and women alike.
Yes.
That's that's. You're right. There's nothing good that ever comes out of
Mhm.
people who drink so much and it becomes a
Mhm.
pastime with its own unique
Mhm.
beauty. Does the government
Yeah.
address this?
We have the alcohol taxation has been going up and down every single time we change the government here, but we have probably the highest taxation for alcohol because of this issue that people in Finland cannot manage the alcohol consumption in regular basis.
So my question becomes: besides taxation, which benefits the government, and I don't trust any government for anybody listening,
Mm.
do they have the programs, the social programs available to say, hey, if your friend or your relative or you yourself has a drinking problem, here is a place in your community where you can go to deal with that because it's an underlying issue.
Okay, so yeah, I need to go a bit backwards or tell you a bit bigger story about the Finnish society. So the whole Finnish society is based on a very socialistic views because of the history. We were part of Russia before, so we still have certain type of mentality before, uh, from before, and how everything is built in this society. So this country is very governed by the parliament and all the laws. So any type of uh, services that are out there are public services. So basically, whatever the government says will be provided. And yes, we have a taxation regarding alcohol. We have a lot of social services, um, yeah, health services out there for to tackle this issue.
Huh.
But it's not enough, and it's not. There's never a situation when public services are enough. But we are trying.
In the United States, we often talk about immigrants, but we also tend to talk about the third generation. The first generation of
Mm,
immigrants are the people who have it the hardest. They're learning the
mm,
language, learning the culture. The second generation are the children who only have it a little less hard
mm,
because they're torn between two worlds. Their
mm.
families want them to have the values of the old world and the food of the old world, yet the people they go to school with are encouraging them to eat McDonald's. Now, the third generation, those are the ones who are fully American. And I
Right.
wonder in 3 generations, will the immigrants not only have learned to be fluent in the language, but will they have adopted the the cultural norms of drinking? Now, to be clear, a lot of the countries that you just spoke of earlier that are sending the most immigrants, if I'm not mistaken, those are majority Muslim countries.
Yeah, they are. And some of them adapt, some of them have now concerning the religion. So they still continue with the religion and all the signs regarding it. So that will of course have an impact in integration and immigration in
Well,
general.
how has that been going?
How? Not well, if that is something. Now, Finland is a, a Lutheran country, a Christian country. We have a state church, and like a lot of services have this Christian influence in it. The whole society runs on the Christian beliefs, basically. So having Islam here has been the biggest cause of debates here. So what happens when the Muslim comes here?
Ooh.
That has been the biggest debate of all. Like everybody acknowledges that we need workforce, but it's the issue is the religion, or seems to be at least in the newspaper headlines.
Okay, so let me get this right. You have a state church.
Yes, in Scandinavian countries we have a state church system.
Wow. And so is let me rephrase that. Are other religions outlawed or are other religions simply you have to fend for yourself?
Yes.
You have to be
So
clear on that.
okay, so um, we have other religions here as well, but
Okay.
they won't have the same status as the Christian church. And now, by Christian church, I mean the Evangelic Lutheran Church, what we have here as our state church.
And is that something Parliament regulates or is that something the people wanted?
Oh, well, that has always been there. So when this country was put together 102 years ago, so that came as part of it already.
Okay. So in 100 years, that might be too soon to revisit that because in 100 years, you're still
Mhm.
figuring out what Finland is.
Yeah, so we gained our independence 102 years ago.
Wait a minute, at 102, there's probably someone who was alive when you were Russian and is still alive now.
Possibly.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So when the Muslim influence comes,
Yeah.
are they able to just kind of pray in peace, like, hey, our stuff is here, your stuff is there? Or is there a clash?
Again, this is we are talking about the minority. So personally, I haven't seen a Muslim praying in a public space. They usually pray inside somewhere. So I haven't seen it myself. But there are dedicated spaces for that in schools, in the universities, and I'm sure in the workplaces that is just a matter of conversation where the person who wants to pray during the day can have then this tiny break.
So it's kind of like you let us do our stuff over here, you do your stuff over there.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
I think this is part of the integration process. Like we learn things from the people who come to our country. We learn from their culture, but then at the same time, they have to learn something from us.
Here's the deeper question. You said they have to learn something from you. Uh,
Mm.
for Finland, but then in the greater sense of the world, do you believe that someone who comes to a country should have either the legal or at the very least ethical responsibility of learning and adopting the characteristics of their new country?
I don't, I don't know if that's a must. But if you want to really feel integrated, you have to adopt at least some part of it. And again, we have this firm belief that whatever you do at home is merely your business, but what you do outside of home, then that becomes a public business. So behaving like the mass behaves outside of your home would be advisable.
You know, this is where I get a lot of pushback from different communities and groups I'm part of.
Mm.
As someone who was an expat in more than 15 countries and am in the process of finishing immigration in Brazil, I feel like I have an ethical responsibility to learn how to be Brazilian, you know, most of the time,
Mm.
because there's the way I would like to do it, the way I
Yeah.
would do it in America, and then, but
Hmm.
I chose your country. I shouldn't be able to say, well, listen, I enjoy the sunshine, I enjoy the food, I
Hmm.
love the fresh fruit and vegetable drinks I have every day. I love access to top quality Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I don't want the other stuff. I don't want to have to learn how to cross the street the way you cross the street. Not simply the language, but how to use the language the way you use the language instead of using your language the way
Mm.
I use my language.
Yeah.
I often feel like so many people, not just Americans, but immigrants and refugees in general, have this weird thing where they say, well, listen, we want to behave the way we did back home, even though we're coming to your house. It would be like you coming to
Mm.
my house and demanding, you people eat fish every day for dinner, right? Just
Yeah, right.
and Maria demanding fish for
Yeah,
dinner every day, and I like fish, but not for dinner every day.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's how I look at it, and I hear people all the time
Mm.
saying, well, you know, you have to account for different things. You do have to account for
Mm.
different things, but we
Yes.
also have to account for you chose that new home.
Mm.
No one put a pistol, unless you were a black slave.
Mm.
No one put a pistol to your head and said, hey, you got to move to this new country. Normally, it's
Hmm.
characteristics that are at least 51% better than where I am. I'm going to try and
Mm.
go there. And is that a nationalistic view? Yes, it is. But just because it's
Mm.
nationalistic, it doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, it's I
and
have.
and also I'm not saying that, you know, migrants should lose their culture or language when they come here. No, that's never what I would say. But learning whatever is done in the new country and trying to find some kind of balance between these two worlds would be the best way to go about.
Well, speaking of learning things in a new country, I'm putting together a specific panel discussion I'd like you to be part of. It's going to be very specific because it's going to be either parents of children who are learning second and third languages,
Hmm.
people who are professionals teaching children, or people like you who are linguistic professionals in second or third languages, and in your case, fourth languages. Because I believe, and I've had some pushback from other friends on this, I believe that language might be the way out for people in bad situations. I think that just like cryptocurrency is something that anyone in any language can learn if they have a fundamental education, not everyone has that,
Mm.
that we have so many apps on phones. For instance, when I was living in China, I spent 2 or 3 months learning Portuguese on Duolingo. I don't get paid by Duolingo. However, if anyone here knows anybody in Duolingo and wants to see if they can sponsor me, I'm all for that. But I didn't learn the language over Duolingo.
Mm.
What I learned is I learned the fundamentals of reading. It meant when I went somewhere and I take the subway or the train or the bus, I knew where I was. I knew the words for to and from and north and
Mm.
south. All those things that made my integration, you know, not at the mercy of trying to find someone and say, "Excuse me, can you help me get home?" I think that language might be the way out for a lot of people because I explained to a dear friend who has a daughter, and she said, you know, her daughter's 8 years old, and she and her husband are talking
Mm.
about the cost of education. What can we do? And I said, well, what do they learn in school? Her daughter's learning Spanish. I said, well, do you understand that could be your key? Not just for her, but if you
Mm.
made Spanish a family affair, Spanish something you all learn together, then in 10 years, when your daughter is fluent at 18, apply to university in Spain, apply to university in any of the how many Spanish speaking countries. One or two of them is going to accept an American who speaks fluent Spanish. And you also realize that in so many other countries, if she can pass the entrance exam in Spanish, she can go to school for free. And she hadn't thought about that. She said, wait a minute. I
Mm.
never, that never crossed my mind. I thought of it as holidays in Mexico or going to Spain for a summer art project. But she said, you know, I didn't know they could. And Americans aren't really aware of these kind of things, but I think language might be the way out. How do you feel about that? How has language or teaching language been something that you've seen affect the lives of the people you've been around?
Well, the best example was when I was living in the Philippines. I was working with the Filipino nurses, and I was part of this 1 year program when our main goal was to train these nurses who had zero knowledge about Swedish, which was the language that I taught there. And within the 1 year, they were supposed to reach the level B2, which is the intermediate advanced level between there. And I'm very proud to say that 100 my former students are currently living in Sweden. They have permanent contracts there, and they hopefully have a better life compared to what they were offered back in the home country.
Now, here's a question. What percentage of your students came from what we would consider economically advantaged backgrounds? Or were these
Very,
people who would be, huh?
very few, I can already say that very few were from such families that actually had or were better off, so to say.
Really?
They
So,
were, yeah, so they had put all the effort to get a job, to get a qualification, to get a job, and to be a nurse. I'm sure Americans know well that from the Philippines, quite a lot of nurses are sent across US and Canada. So this also applies to other countries. And now there's people also coming to Europe. So they got the qualification, they have a bit of work experience here and there, and then when they get this language skills, they enter another country and they can actually have a fixed no, sorry, permanent job, not
well,
fixed term.
let me back up for a second. I don't think you know this. Most Americans have no idea. The huge number of nurses come from
Okay.
come from the Philippines. People in the nursing industry who are doctors, they know this. The average American has no real idea. Now, first, as a credit to people like you, their English is often flawless, so they have no idea. But second, most Americans, when we talk about immigration, we don't know just how many immigrants make American life possible. You know, when slavery was outlawed, you know, the United States had to look quickly for a group of people willing to do jobs that the average white American felt himself above, whether or not they were rich or poor. You know, they don't realize that when the United States government does these giant crackdowns on people hiring illegal immigrants, that they fuck entire industries for months because the average American doesn't know that that banana you ate, the chili on your hamburger, that lettuce that they sliced for your salad, all that was done by immigrant hands from the field to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so we always have to wonder what will be the untold consequences of things like that. And I often wonder, I remember you told me you watched that video that we did, if using language as a way to facilitate immigration would be ideal. What were your thoughts on my idea? Because I think you saw the video that we did, right?
Yeah. So, well, now again referring this my experience. So I would say that this learning a language before you enter the country would be the better idea. When you have this idea of the language, you have idea of the mentality or the culture of people before you go there, than compared to these people who come without any background information to the country and then start learning everything from the scratch. Would this make any sense?
Are you saying language teaches culture?
Yes, because all the languages are bound to a culture. Now, already before this chat, we had this talk about a holiday. So now I was using the word holiday just for realizing that we were talking actually about the vacation,
Well,
because I used English, and in US you prefer the word vacation instead. So this is already a culture bound word. Tiny
hmm,
word difference.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think that have you made the decision on whether your English was it considered UK English or was it considered American English that you were taught?
That is. This is not a very easy question to answer. So it was considered UK English when I learned it at school. But now, listen, I would say that 50% of the programs that are shown in our national TV are more or less from US. So I have been hearing American English more than enough to learn the pronunciation, the vocabulary that is more common for US than for UK.
And
And a
that,
lot of people tell me who listen to me that okay, you have been dealing with Americans a lot. Not really. I have been just following a lot of US programs.
yeah, yeah, that's yeah, I can see that because you switch sometimes, and
Yes.
it's not. I'm fortunate that I lived in London for a while, so
Mm,
I guess it doesn't bother me. But to someone who
mm,
learned American English and they're not
mm.
a native speaker, it might confuse them because they're thinking, "What are you talking about?" I personally, interestingly enough, I love British television, especially British cop dramas. Like the new season of Luther just came out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, have you watched Line of Duty?
No, that I haven't. But Luther I've seen.
You have to watch Line of Duty. I'm going to send you the link to it. Line of Duty has a plot twist that is revealed in the first season. However, you don't necessarily know all of it until the second season. It's a show that
Right.
you're watching and you think you know what you're watching, and it's a great show, but at some point, wait a minute, is this show about what I think it's about? Because it's not. And what I'd like for you
Wow.
to do is make sure it's legal. Don't you dare pirate or torrent. Uh, Line of Duty. What I'll do is I'm actually gonna. I love the show so much. I have to put in the comments a link to the trailer, and I'm gonna send it
Mm.
to you as well. But yeah, that learning a language as a way to learn a culture. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I absolutely see that. I met someone here who runs a business with his wife. She does Turbanchis, the hair wraps, and he does all the media and advertising, and they make a huge chunk of money selling Brazilian hair wraps and hairstyles to Americans. But when I talked to this guy, he was like, he sounded just amazing. And I said, "Where did you learn English?" He said, "I never went to school for it." He grew up from childhood with his dad watching every American cop show from New York he could. He sounds like a 1980s New York cop. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing.
Right.
You're talking,
Right.
wow, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, like when you're telling to me that I'm changing, this is not something that I do, consciously. Like it might be that I have learned certain phrase in UK English or at school, and then another phrase or a set of words from a US TV series or whatever. So I'm just recalling the word in a way that I have learned it. So then I might be mixing those. But this is it. So I, I I would never say that language is somehow separated from the culture. They are always somehow combined.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you have something as prevalent as American television. One of the things that I have to beat out of my clients is stop listening to American music and thinking that's how we actually speak. You know, it's hard enough dealing with television shows that speak in a stilted language, but I can get
Mhm.
around that because at least they structure the sentences grammatically correct, even if the things they say are weird. But when
Mhm.
you get into music, I have to explain to them, first of all, if you use this word, people are going to think you were born in the poorest parts of America immediately. But they don't know that because this is cool. I'm thinking, if you use that word, you understand you're telling the world that you were born in the most depraved, poverty stricken area because anyone who was born there is struggling to learn not to use that word. And they go, really? I said, yes, really.
Yeah, well, the worst thing is that currently they are showing the Downton Abbey. Are you familiar with the show?
I've heard of it. I have not watched it yet.
Okay, please do so if you are any wishes to see how the early 1900s in UK was. They are they are presenting it really well. But what they are repeating, there's this one word, jolly, for
Which means
instance,
happy,
phrase.
right?
Okay, I'm going to give you a phrase. So you can jolly well do it. How would you translate that?
Yeah. Oh, there's no way for me to explain that. Because yeah, you're right. There's no way. I'm trying to think. How would I say you can jolly well do it? You can bloody well do it, but that's still English.
That's yeah, but
It's still
it's
British
completely
English.
different. it's completely different
You can,
register. If you would change it like bloody well, that's not suitable. But jolly well is for the upper class, I would say.
well, I know that there's this very specific British English that is only taught in elite schools, that is used as a class marker. One of the things I learned that the United States does very, very differently is our class and culture markers of wealth are totally different. You know, nobody does exuberant displays of wealth like the English. Once you know what you're seeing, you understand that in the United States, someone can be born dirt poor or from a disenfranchised group and learn to speak correct English in a corporate boardroom. Whereas in England, you are literally speaking a different English as a marker of your class and wealth. It's nuts. It's nuts. Listen, we're running out of time. Are you going to come back and be part of the group and use your American English to fight your way in and talk about language with us?
I would love to try.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug?
Mä voisin sanoa suomeksi, että tämä on ollut erittäin mielenkiintoinen kokemus ja voisin tätä jatkaa myös myöhemmin.
You'll have to translate. My buddy Craig said good conversation. Listen, I'm going to hang up and go off air, but you don't hang up because we are not going to talk about illegal ways to pirate those television shows. Okay. So for anybody watching, that's not what we're going to talk about. All right.